Shortly before the 2-lap mini-race that completed a roller coaster finish to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton had reminded his Mercedes team that the Formula 1 title fight is a marathon, not a sprint. Then Hamilton got the jump on Red Bull's Sergio Perez, and instead of sweeping into the lead at the restart, he darted down the Turn 1 escape road like Usain Bolt. What was that mantra again? It looked like Hamilton had simply got carried away, braked too late, and thrown away the victory. But the real error happened moments before and was more a sign of slight carelessness than a lack of composure. Make sure you dive into the comments to have your say as we explain Hamilton's mistake and what it did to his car, how it let Max Verstappen off the hook after he'd been robbed of victory himself, and why we were even watching a 2-lap sprint at the end anyway. And if you like what you see, feel free to hit the thumbs up button at any time. Hamilton lined up second for the standing restart with 2 laps left of the Baku race after a tyre failure sent title rival Verstappen crashing out of the lead. Hamilton got a better start than Perez and was set to take control of the race when he locked up violently under braking and shot into the runoff area. It dropped Hamilton to the back of the pack and he finished 15th, allowing Verstappen to retain the lead of the Drivers' Championship by 4 points. Moments before the cars left the pit lane for the restart, Hamilton had indicated he'd play it cautiously with his radio message to the team. He'd just asked whether he would have the overtake mode for the first lap and was told no because it would drain his battery too quickly, leave him low on power and potentially vulnerable further around the lap. Everything about Mercedes' preparation for the restart, including what Hamilton was saying himself, indicated he wouldn't be taking a risk given Verstappen was on the sidelines. But after sitting with smoking brakes on the starting grid and then locking up so badly seconds later trying to make sure he passed Perez into Turn 1, it looked like a terrible betrayal of Hamilton's own mantra. It seemed Hamilton had made an uncharacteristic major error in a crunch moment, and he did, but it was a different mistake to how it appeared. After the initial launch, Hamilton accidentally hit a switch that moved his car's brake balance aggressively forward, and in his words, meant he basically had no rear brakes into Turn 1. A distraught Hamilton only realised that once he'd brought his car back to parc ferme after a speechless in-lap and had an utterly dejected exchange with race engineer Peter Bonington. Hamilton sat in his car for just over a minute after switching the engine off before a message from Bonington prompted Hamilton to ask, "Did I have the magic on?" And Bonington confirmed that he did. The magic is a button located behind the steering wheel on the upper left side, above where Hamilton's left hand would normally be when on the wheel. It controls a preset that moves the brake balance very far forward. Usually the bias can be anywhere from 53 to 57% to the front, but this preset will switch that to well beyond 75%. It's used on preparation laps in practice and qualifying, and on formation laps or behind the safety car in the race to generate front tyre temperature. Hamilton had correctly turned it off for the race start, but appears to have accidentally struck it during the initial launch phase. While the brake magic toggle would normally be out of reach, Hamilton rests his left hand on top of the steering wheel at the race start while operating the clutch paddle, which is also on the left side. That seems to be the likeliest cause of the mistake, but either way, it was a mistake. Perhaps not quite the instance of getting carried away in the moment or crumbling under pressure as it looked initially, but a costly error nonetheless, given it stopped him from taking the championship lead. Verstappen was on course for a commanding victory in a Red Bull 1-2 ahead of Perez when his left rear tyre gave way on the start-finish straight with 4 laps to go. He was running a set of hard tyres that had been fitted at the end of lap 11 of the 51-lap race when the failure pitched his car into the barrier at high speed. Red Bull team boss Christian Horner said the tyres had not been approaching their limit when Verstappen crashed, claiming they should have easily made the finish. Verstappen speculated that tyre supplier Pirelli might suggest the problem was caused by debris from Lance Stroll's earlier crash. He seems sceptical that this would be the true cause, but as he predicted, it is what Pirelli has deduced from its initial findings. Pirelli has gathered the remains of the tyres to conduct a thorough investigation, but the company's F1 boss Mario Isola has already excluded the possibility of either failure being caused by wear. This is for several reasons, including the lack of warning before a sudden loss of pressure, the fact that there was still adequate tread in the remains of both tyres, others running longer on sets of hards, and that cuts were discovered in other tyres, including Hamilton's left rear from the second stint. But that might not really convince Verstappen, and in any case it certainly won't soothe him. If things had stayed as they were, he would have extended his points lead to 15. Verstappen does consider himself lucky in another sense, as Hamilton's blunder means Verstappen still heads the championship by 4 points. Even finishing second would have moved Hamilton into a 14-point lead, while the win he threw away at turn 1 would have put him 21 points clear. That was of some solace to Verstappen, but not a great deal given a third win of the season went begging at a race Red Bull simply had too fast a car for Mercedes to compete with. The silver lining for Red Bull was Perez's excellent first victory for the team at the end of comfortably his most competitive weekend of the season, but even that didn't come without drama. Gradually decreasing hydraulic pressure was reaching critical levels towards the end of the race, and Red Bull started Perez's car up at the last possible moment before the final restart to conserve what little pressure there was. Perez was even told not to weave on the warm-up lap, as the power steering might have drained the vital last bit of pressure keeping the car alive. And just to underline the severity of the situation, Perez was instructed to stop his car almost immediately after he crossed the line. So it was quite feasible that Red Bull would blow both championship leads in this race, but instead Perez was able to lead a shock podium ahead of Sebastian Vettel and Pierre Gasly, and Red Bull is now 26 points clear of Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. The 2-lap dash set up by the Verstappen red flag was the shortest restarted race in F1 so far, beating a 5-lap sprint at the end of the 2011 Monaco Grand Prix. Historically, F1 has had the option to declare races officially over if a stoppage occurs beyond 75% distance. It could have opted to declare the Baku result as soon as the red flag was shown, or could have finished the race under the safety car. But the Baku race was red flagged and restarted because FIA race director Michael Masi felt a 2-lap sprint to the finish was in the best interest of the sport. Verstappen crashed just as he was about to complete his 46th lap of 51. It took a bizarrely long time for a safety car to be called, which meant the field completed the 47th lap under caution, and the race was finally suspended at the end of the 48th lap. Masi said the decision had been taken based on the number of laps that were left to go, the recovery that was being undertaken, and the fact there was so much debris on the pit straight. It left just 2 laps to be completed once the safety car had led the field round for lap 49 to set up a full standing restart. A similar incident earlier in the race was not handled with a red flag, but with a safety car. Stroll's left rear tyre failed earlier on the main straight, which triggered a caution period of around 15 minutes. Masi said that at the stage of the Grand Prix Stroll crashed, time was not a factor and the recovery process could be undertaken without stopping the race. But doing the same for Verstappen's crash car would have meant the race ended behind the safety car, and Masi wanted to avoid that. Vettel and Gasly certainly weren't complaining, as the showdown allowed them to grab excellent unexpected podium finishes, with Vettel's first Aston Martin podium completing a mega rise from outside the top 10. So are you glad that Masi made that call and set up the 2-lap run to the finish? What's your view on the incidents that befell the 2 championship rivals, and which of the 3 podium finishes were you happiest for? Make sure you let us know in the comments, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to join us again in the future.